W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Let's tip off with March Madness.
The men's Final Four, which is now set for this upcoming weekend in Phoenix.
Alabama against UConn, Purdue, and NC State.
NC State, the darlings of this tournament.
Cinderella.
The thing I want to see most is UConn play Purdue. I want to see Zach Edey played out of the clean.
I Purdue with Purdue.
Switch here to UConn for a second.
And our fan base, again, is obnoxious as on social, so everyone hates us.
Mike Danger.
We both have the same team cutting down the nets when it's all said and done. That would be the UConn Huskies.
Gene Battaglia.
Chances are you like Rochester, and you like Rochester sports. LeBron!
My name is Luca.
Tonight in women's basketball, Elite Eight action as LSU and Iowa, they will face off. Second game of the night features USC battling UConn.
And you've got the three-point lines wrong on a fourth?
Had they found Rashee Rice yet?
Yankees win. And Frozen 4.
Carter Wilkie. Did he enter the transfer portal?
Tommy Scarfone.
Cause he's Italian!
It's April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day.
No!
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Yes, it is April 1st, and yes, you are in the sports bar. We're open for business. Our phone number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Rochester's only local sports talk show. Gene Battaglia driving the car this weekend. I've got the keys to the car here. Dan DeLorean, our fine producer today, joining us. Dan, how was your weekend? Good weekend, buddy?
It was a good weekend. Good to see everybody with the family for Easter. A lot of good food yesterday, so I'm still nice and full from yesterday. It was a good good Easter weekend.
I think we're all kind of little stuff from yesterday. I'm just thinking, it'll be interesting next Monday, right? Because I think we're all at the point of getting a little bit overload here. Specials and stories about the Eclipse. What we're going to do is we're not going to go out of the ordinary because, Danger and I were discussing it a lot. Like how do we connect with our listeners? And then we just came to the reality that it's going to be tough to get around town that day. Like when we're out for the NFL draft, which we will be once again at Three Heads on Thursday, and then the Tap Room at Bill Gray's on Friday. That's at the end of the month. That's a day where, come on out, we're going to hang out and have a cold one. But for the Eclipse, it's going to be difficult to get from here to there. So we just decided, all right, you know what? We're just going to stay right here. We're just going to go up on the roof, and Derek's going to help us out with that. And we signed our waivers. We're going to be okay, and that's going to be next Monday. And the early forecast looks like, all right, if we get a day like today, next Monday, that'll be good. Fortunately for the Red Wings tomorrow, it's looking a little sketch. 47, maybe some rain tomorrow. So that 50-degree promise, if they do play, that's going to, go in everyone's favor if you already bought tickets. You're in the sports bar today, kind of a mixed bag. We want to have fun, but we have this story that came across. I'm not going to hit the breaking news sound or anything like that because we don't want to joke when it comes to this sort of stuff. Tell you what's happened on the show today first. Again, Danger's off this week, Battaglia in, along with our producer, Dan. 13 Wham's Dan Fates will be joining us in the 4 o'clock hour. He texted me a couple times on Saturday. Yeah, it was about the Mets. Not a good opening weekend for the Mets. I'm not surprised. I think the Milwaukee's going to be 500-ish. But Dan basically said in a text, your team is embarrassing. And I'm like, well, you know what? This would be a conversation that would be better served on air. So he's accepted the invitation to talk about this. But we have so much Bills stuff to get to. And again, one of the stories we weren't expecting to talk about today. Dan Fates, 13 Wham coming up. At 4:25, coming up at the bottom of the hour, you hear him here. You hear him on 96.5 WCMF. Tim Schneider's out in Albany. Now, he planned this out a year ago. Like, hey, let's go to the regional, which was that 3-hour drive. That is going to be the center of the sports world tonight, as Iowa going to be taking on LSU and a lot of eyeballs. And I'm going to have to guess here that will be the biggest number that women's college basketball has ever seen in terms of a TV rating tonight. Even though it's not on network, it's on ESPN, but we're all going to be watching tonight. It's not the NBA, it's not the NHL, it's not Major League Baseball. It's going to be women's college basketball that we're all going to be talking about and reacting to tomorrow. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Kim Mulkey. We'll talk to Tim Schneider coming up. I would also be kind of curious, too. I know Buffalo well. I know the Hill okay in Syracuse. I don't know anything about Albany. Honestly, I don't. I've been to that arena once, and that was when I was in college, and basically kind of busted. When I was a kid, I remember like these tunnels around the state capitol, and they were all marble and all really nice looking, but like, what do you do in Albany? Like, where do you go? I have no idea. And that city is only 3 hours away. They've never given us anything to say, you know what? I'm going to Albany this weekend for a sporting event. And as I was saying Friday, I'm kind of jealous that Albany got this because they have the bigger venue and they have also a D1 school that can put in the bid, as Siena did, to host this thing. So, boy, they struck gold, and good for our neighbors to the east. We'll talk to Tim Schneider coming up at the bottom of the hour. As always, we have time for your calls, 866-4326. Maybe more so today or this week because Danger is down in Florida. So, honestly, you want to, like, we'll kind of bend the format here a little bit, and usually, like, hey, you're going to call in, stick to the point here. And, when you do call in, what's the Rome thing? Just have a take. That's what we want. Add to the conversation. Hey, Gene, here's an angle that you hadn't thought of. Hey, here's something that you might want to consider. Like, that's the thing. Because I appreciate everybody who listens. And if you can contribute and push the conversation forward, well, that's what we're here for. That's the beauty of this format. Sometimes sports talk radio gets kind of meatheadish. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to have fun here, and we want to just kind of give you something to think about. That's kind of my philosophy on this. Now, what is not fun is the story that kind of broke like an hour ago, and now it's been confirmed by the Dolphins and the Bills and everybody else. Vontae Davis has died. So, Vontae Davis, you remember the story, drafted by the Dolphins, played with the Colts. Bills bring him in as a corner. This would have been Josh's rookie season. And game 1 was in Baltimore. Game 2, the home opener against the Chargers. And I remember being in the Bills locker room, and Kyle Williams was really, really upset. And I'm like, I wasn't really in tune with what happened because you don't expect, if somebody's not on the field, you think they're at the locker room, they're getting treatment. Nobody really knew at the time what had happened with Vontae Davis. And unfortunately, on today, that's part of his story is that he left the Buffalo Bills mid-game and decided, you know what, retirement, I'm going to start it right here and now. And many people called him a quitter, and I think we had some fun with this. But we also talked to him in that same training camp. And that same training camp, and I'm not going to play you the audio here by choice. I think that's not appropriate. But that same training camp, he was talking about travel plans with his wife and how he wanted to see the world and do this. And, well, when after that Week 2 game against the Chargers, after Davis left the Bills, he's like, okay, maybe this makes sense, where he's in camp, he's already thinking about traveling. It's the old Marv Levy expression. If you were thinking about retirement, you're already retired. Well, now fast forward 6 years, and this is the story we're talking about today. 35 years old, and right now, police are not suspecting foul play. So that's all we have. But this was in his home in Southwest Ranches, Florida, which happens to be 30 miles north of Miami. So the investigation is ongoing, and it was actually one of his former college coaches, Chester Frazier, who put that out there today. And today being the day where we all have to be extra vigilant what we see on social media, right? Like, wait a second. You first see that, like, come on, this is not the day to be doing some sort of prank like this. And sure enough, others, including our buddy Armando Salguero, confirming it just a little thereafter. So Vontae Davis is left us at the age of 35. You have thoughts on that? You can join us at 866-4326, 866-4FAN. Yeah, I'll have thoughts on RIT and what was a weekend. We'll get to that in a little bit here, as that was kind of a stunner on Easter Sunday. When we get to Dan Vates in the 4 o'clock hour, I want to talk about where the Bills are headed here, because this initial wave of free agency has pretty much wrapped up. And I think there is one big question mark on this team, and that's, hey, we still don't know technically. I guess I have to throw out this disclaimer about Micah Hyde. We haven't heard him retire. We haven't heard him take any other visits. We haven't heard anything about him coming back. It's just kind of out there. So we're kind of left to assume that Micah Hyde isn't part of the mix. And for that matter, quite frankly, I think the Bills would be better served going in a different direction at both safety positions. Hell of a run by Poyer and Hyde. And actually, I hope that Jordan Poyer makes some plays for the Dolphins. I'm not one of those that are like, oh, you play for the enemy. No, you know what? He wants to continue playing. It wasn't his choice. The Buffalo Bills let him go, and so he has that right to continue his career. That my point being, the safety position right now. Do you really feel comfortable with Mike Edwards and also Taylor Rapp as your projected starting safeties? Yes, you have Cam Lewis. Yes, you have DeMar Hamlin. But to me, what you really need is that guy who can kind of police things in the back. And I just keep coming back. If I had to make a prediction who the Buffalo Bills would take today, and trust me, I'm so in tune with Bills X, Twitter mafia, that takes about the wide receiver train that Jeremy White, our buddy from WGR, will talk about. I can listen to your takes on how that would actually benefit the Buffalo Bills to take the best wide receiver at pick 28. I'd also say this. They don't have enough back in the secondary right now. They really, really don't. And whoever you draft in this position, I think you'd also be considering with the new kickoff rule, you need a player that's going to make a big play. Maybe that ends up being Deontay Hardy coming back to the Buffalo Bills. Deontay Hardy, who, hey, it was week 17, week 18, when that play was made where, cutting through and, taking it to the house against the Dolphins, that flipped the game, that won the Bills the AFC East. We forget that the Bills in the AFC East actually went down to the last night. It really wasn't comfortable all last year. Funny how, we look back and think, the Bills. Well, last year the division was in question up until the last regular season game of the season for every team. So my point being that it was one play that flipped everything. Can the Buffalo Bills find that player that can return, bring it back to the safety position? There's a safety out there that, what did he have, 3 returns in his time at Iowa? And the Bills have had success, although it was through free agency with Micah Hyde. I'm talking about Cooper DeJean. Mm-hmm. Cooper DeJean right now, to me, feels like somebody that, with what you have between Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp, you don't have to plug him in there right away, but somebody who has those smarts that you could put back there and learn and then take over at his own pace. Oh, and by the way, maybe you put him on punt returns. Maybe you put him in the interim on kickoff returns. The possibilities are there. When we bring on Dan Fates later on, Buffalo Plus, I am curious to get his thoughts in what direction the Buffalo Bills should go in. And you could also make the argument that, well, people don't want to hear this. You need help on the defensive line. Daquan Jones is good. He's on the wrong side of 30. Von Miller is going to be there. He took a pay cut. I wouldn't count on him for everything. You have Greg Rousseau. You have back A.J. Epineza. Those are the guys on the outside, I would think. But what about the interior of the line? Who's going to be that third guy? And I know they brought in some guys here from the Chargers and the Panthers, and you're going to have some veteran. And I'm okay with bringing in lots of different talent, but who's going to be that next guy up? If there's an opportunity to get another defensive lineman, whether that's a edge rusher or somebody that can, turn it upfield in the middle there and be a run stuffer, I would consider that too. So I don't think you can go wrong with that. It's the fact that the Bills have tried this and keep trying this. And Greg Rousseau is at the point where, boy, when you see it, it's like, whoa, that's it. You just want to see more of it, right? A.J. Epineza, same thing. It took him a while up until last year, and credit him. He got another deal out of it. So those are my thoughts. I think that the Bills would actually be better served going on defense than offense, specifically wide receiver, in the first round. Because in the second round, I think, could you then move up a few slots and get a Ladd McConkey and everybody's happy? Wide receiver at 28 or in the first round has to be this. You are drafting that player to eventually be the number one guy to succeed, take that title away from Diggs, whether that's in 25 or 26 or wherever that is. If you don't think that is going to be the case, then then don't do it. And I'm not trying to be contrarian here. I'm not, honestly. Well, I'm just looking at this. You still need a team that has to get by the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. And in order to do that, you can't really have any leaks here on your defense. And there's the safeties are in question right now. Pass rush, a little bit in question right now. So pointing out that you may be served, you could say, well, Gene just outscored the opponent. Okay, I could hear that too. I can listen to that argument. But I think right now, in terms of spreading the targets on this Buffalo Bills team, Diggs is still your number one. I would put Dalton Kincaid number two this coming year. He is like your tight end one, but is going to be more active than he was last year. The Bills kind of eased him in. That's not going to be the case this year. He's the guy from week one. And then Khalil Shakir, who really came on at the end of last year, who Josh Allen trusts. And then if Curtis Samuel is kind of, I feel like he's like the number 3, or 4 in terms of target share. So, right there, you're fine. Oh, I didn't even mention, Dawson Knox could come in and you could run more two tight end. Or can James Cook learn to be a better receiver here? Can you evolve that part of the game? Because Cook on wheel routes, look out. Nobody's accounting for him. The Philadelphia drop comes to mind. There was a play in Kansas City where just running up the seam, touchdown. There are guys that can catch the ball on the team right now. The Bills' offense is not going to slow down because they didn't take a first-round receiver. The Bills, right now, with those two safeties, I don't know. You think those guys scare Patrick Mahomes? Do you think they scare Joe Burrow?
No.
I mean, I'm saying Joe Burrow. The Bengals are not on the schedule for the Buffalo Bills next year, but I'm just projecting to places you got to get past in the postseason. We'll talk some Bills today as well. And again, it's the biggest non-championship game in women's basketball history tonight. Mm-hmm. It really is. You could point to other regular season games, I'm sure, but the NCAA did this for a reason. Because when the Final Four for the women comes around, we will all be turning in, but I don't ever recall where you got to the Elite Eight on a Monday night saying, this is what you have to watch tonight. And this is going to kind of transcend. Caitlin Clark is the athlete that has become a household name. She really has. And the storyline with LSU and how LSU can't have it both ways. They could say, hey, you're painting us a villain, but then Kim Mulkey fighting with the media and everything else. Look, whatever it is tonight, it's compelling television to see these two teams kind of go at it. They could have put LSU in South Carolina's bracket. They could have done that real easy. Okay, they could have put UConn in Iowa's bracket. They could have done that real easy. No, they wanted a guarantee. All right, that we would get a rematch of last year's final. That's what we have tonight. Oh, and then, by the way, stick around because afterward, if you like that, we have UConn-USC tonight, and that's going to be a good matchup as well. And I'm never an Oriama fan. I just like to see USC kind of stick it to them, but that's just me. So if you have thoughts on that tonight as well, I just kind of find it embarrassing that the NCAA wheels out a floor in Portland, Oregon yesterday that has the incorrect distance for the three-pointer. That it's not even close. I mean, I could understand that if you made like a little measurement, but mistake here or there, but you look at it, it's like, who okayed this? This is also part of this, too, and I'm not a fan of this. Like, you're watching whether it's the men or the women. I want to know where I'm tuning in. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, where's this game? Oh, well, we want to all make it the same here, and it's the same hardwood floor everywhere. Well, that being said, how do you mess that up? How? How does this happen? We'll talk to Tim Schneider coming up. 4 o'clock hour, I'll have thoughts on where IT hockey goes for it. Like, I was engaging with a lot of Tiger fans yesterday. If you missed the story, Carter Wilkie, team's top, you can't say top point getter because his wingmate on left wing, Cody Laskowski was, but Carter Wilkie, center, top playmaker, I would say, to the team. It wouldn't have surprised me if he went pro, but going into the portal, ooh. What was a shock? Tommy Scarfoni. Wow. And right now, I don't know who's going to be in goal for the Tigers. So I'm thinking, boy, Wayne Wilson has this team set up year after year after year. Now we're going to have questions about next year's team. And I've got thoughts on the portal, too. And was there anything the Tigers could have done differently here about this? I get the question a lot about the conference the Tigers are in. Mm-hmm. I will have thoughts on that coming up at 4 o'clock today. We will talk some women's basketball up next. We will talk Buffalo Bills football. We have time for your calls anytime at 585-866-4326, 866-4FAN. It's Battaglia and Drummy today on the Sports Bar.
You're listening to the Sports Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Dan DeLorean going with the little college kind of drum line there. Appreciate that. Is joining us on the phone from Albany. We're our Albany correspondent today, Tim Schneider. Tim, my first question is, what do you do on Albany during your downtime? What is the scene there? Honestly, I'd never been around Albany.
Right now, they've got us at a hotel. It's a brand new hotel in about a block from the arena. So we went and grabbed some food earlier, took a little lap around the arena again. We just happened to run into Caitlin Clark, of all people. So she is well secured, but they got off the bus as we were coming out of our diner, and the Iowa team looks like they are ready to go.
All right. So when you say security there, does she have somebody right beside her?
Oh, yeah. She's got a personal handler. There's, like, people that, like, they're undercover, but they're not undercover. You know what they're there for.
Yeah.
They're sitting in cars, making sure that the weirdos stay away. We didn't run into any weirdos, but you never know where they might come up.
Have you been inside the arena yet?
Yeah, I went yesterday to the South Carolina-Oregon State game. That was a good one. South Carolina looked as dominant as they have all season long. They didn't even play well, and they still were never really in doubt of losing that one.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Because we're all focused on Caitlin Clark, and Kim Mulkey is bringing attention, I think, on her own program by, calling attention to other articles about her program and herself. But we have another team that's undefeated here, like South Carolina. I could see them just kind of walking through, and everybody like, oh, wait, we should pay more attention to them.
Yeah, even Dawn Staley herself last night pretty much said, like, I'm thankful for all these other teams taking away the spotlight, and we can just go to work and go to work they have pretty much all season long.
Tim Schneider, who you hear various things, including St. John Fisher lacrosse. That was exciting Friday night, Tim, 28-4.
Yeah, that was really fun. I'm hoping to do that again sometime in the near future.
Yeah. Tim, about the arena, when you walk around there, are you jealous? Like, hey, I wish we had something like this in Rochester, or is it no, not at all? It's the
event in Rochester would be incredible. However, we do not have Division I program outside of RIT, so that seems near impossible to pull off. But the arena here is not great. It's going to be absolutely chaotic in there in a few hours, and it's a sellout. The tickets are going for 3, 4, 5 times the price they are at face value. The arena is overloaded with people, and the lines for the bathrooms are absolute insanity for both the men and the women. The women's line went up and down and around stairs at halftime yesterday. I'm guessing that the people that were at the end of that line didn't get back to their seats until the end of the third quarter.
That's not good for a few reasons, and I'm wondering, like, because I was in the arena. Boy, early 1990s, Tim, for like the MAC championship game. It's going back to like 1992. I'm guessing they haven't done much to it since then.
A couple of couple of coats of paint, and a few more Sienna championship banners for the MAC and the tournament runs that they had 15 years ago. But yeah, that's about it. The River Rats are gone. They've got, I think, an ECHL team playing there now. There's not a whole lot that Albany has to offer, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, it's what you brought it up, Sienna. That is the reason why they put in a bid, and these bids don't happen, right now. Like you have to bid years out for hockey, Tim. And we're hearing chatter that RIT is going to put in a bid to get back regionals. I think it would be great for Rochester. First one that's open is 2027. I'm wondering, if they're going to, come with the storyline of, well, look at the men's game compared to the women's game. We can't even get the distance right here for the three-point line, and why are we hosting regionals in an outdated arena in Albany?
Oh, yeah, that trauma over there in Portland is insane. The top teams in the country are playing at different shooting lengths. That's insane. You can't have that be happening, and it happened prior. They found out yesterday, and they played 4 games there earlier.
Yeah.
Here in Albany, it's I don't know. It's probably a great spot for the way that they regionalized it. There's 2 regions for the women's bracket. They're just numbered. They're not actually regionalized out like they do for the men. That plays out here. You can pull that off here, and the crowds here are indicative of that. You can find stuff to do. It's just you've got to find the right people to lead you along the way. Rochester has that same issue too.
Yeah. How do they, because I imagine, like, if you're in Albany, I'm going. If you're within a good driving distance, I'm going. But who are they bringing in? Like, who of these teams travel well, Tim?
I have only seen a handful of LSU fans. I've seen, and it might be the Caitlin Clark experience, but I've seen Iowa after Iowa after Iowa. I've got people in this hotel that were hanging out in the lobby last night. They're Iowa State grads, but they're following Iowa because of Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much Iowa-centric. There was a lot of South Carolina yesterday, hardly any Oregon State, but I'm guessing that's a distance thing. But Iowa, far and away, the fan favorite for the crowd.
We're talking to Tim Schneider as tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPN. It's LSU and Iowa Elite Eight, which Tim was just saying this. It's okay if we're just honest with ourselves. I can't remember a time where the Elite Eight was appointment viewing in women's basketball. And we're talking about sports that have just grown in our lifetime. I think what Tiger Woods did for golf is remarkable. And today, golf is in a great place because of what Tiger did for it. Can we, to a smaller degree, make a kind of an analogy what Caitlin Clark's doing for women's basketball right now?
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah. Like 30 years ago, you had Tennessee. 25 years ago, you had Tennessee and UConn. And then until 3, 4, 5 years ago with Caitlin Clark, like now there's like South Carolina's the best team in the country, but nobody cares about South Carolina. They care about Caitlin Clark. But the fact that you have like UConn still around, you've got South Carolina, you've got Iowa, you've got LSU, who's the defending national champion. There's more than just one marketable program now, and like you can see just based on the crowds here, like it's absolutely nuts compared to even 5 years ago where nobody cared about the women's tournament whatsoever until the Final Four of the finals. The Sweet 16 was sold out.
Yeah, it's also kind of noteworthy too that as the sport has grown, Tim, I still think there's a lot more work to be done. For this simple fact that one thing we love about March Madness, oh my gosh, look at all these upsets. Wow, this is great. Oakland beat Kentucky. Wow, we have NC State and 11 seed kind of getting in, although that sidebar, maybe that's not a real true 11 seed. But the fact that we've never had a seed outside of 1, 2, or 3 in women's basketball win the whole thing. That is very telling to me. And again, when you look right now, that's all the seeds that are left, 1, 2s, and 3s here.
Well, that goes back to it too. Like, there's only been so many marketable programs. You've got UConn dominating for decades. Like, of course they're going to win year in and year out. Tennessee prior to them, Stanford had a run, Purdue had a run. But now you've got like the teams that are actually elite do not lose games they're not supposed to on the women's side. Where on the men's side, you have a bad game or you get a good shooter to go off like Golke did for Oakland, that changes the whole game on the men's side. But on the women's side, the teams are teams, and they are actually good when they're actually good. They don't make mistakes. They don't have off days.
Tim, what do you think when I say Kim Mulkey? Is she good? She's everybody has an opinion about her. So is that good for the sport? Bad for the sport? What are your thoughts on Mulkey here?
Hey, it's good for the sport because it gets people talking about the sport, but no, I don't think she's a very good person, which then draws attention to her. Like, we shouldn't be talking about Kim Mulkey. We should be talking about her players, and she's created a distraction, for better or worse. Maybe it works for them. Maybe that's the motivation that she does for them to get them to play the way that they do. But I don't care about her. Why do we talk about her every 2 hours instead of what Angel Reese has done for the team, what the rest of the team has done for the last 2 years?
Well,
we're talking about a coach and a bad attitude.
Well, like what I would say is if somehow LSU wins the whole thing again, and you could say, wow, this was her best coaching job as a 3 seed, just to create this whole, okay, it's us. I think that was the case anyways. Wherever LSU went, it was going to be everybody for Caitlin Clark and everything else. And then if you end up with an LSU, and so I don't know how the brackets go here, Tim, but like if you end up with that final here, South Carolina and LSU, I think more people would lean to South Carolina. So just the idea that Mulkey has, I think it's to her doing. She's kind of created this, hey, we can be the villain, but don't call us the villain here.
Yeah, she was that way at Baylor, but she had a dominant Brittany Griner by her side who then she turned on, left her for dead, really, in Russia, took the job at LSU, has done a great job there, but her antics off the court, or her behavior or demeanor off the court, is what we're talking about, instead of the great players that she's able to recruit and basically coach up to their talents.
Tim Schneider is in Albany tonight, where we get to have Tim on the show today, kind of weighing in on some of the the topics here surrounding this women's Elite Eight matchup tonight. So, how do you see this game playing out tonight, Tim?
My heart says Iowa by a handful, so it probably goes LSU, because typically what I want, I don't often get. Like a non-overtime Amherst game, that would be glorious one time, but doesn't go in my favor.
No, did you do the game Saturday against Cleveland? I don't even know that.
I did. Yes, yeah. I did.
It went into overtime, but at least it went the Amherst.
21 of them this year.
All right, so Tim, this is where we start talking hockey here a little bit, because you are the fine producer for both Don and Andrew. And okay, so the Amherst here, they seem to be hitting their stride at the right time. So with that being said here, it's a very tough division. So how do you size this up here where the Amherst could fall here in the standings?
This division's really fun, and like you said, you get hot at the right time, and you get guys like Levi coming back where they belong down here. He'll take this team as far as he's able to take them, and they're hot right now without him. So they can finish anywhere from first to last in this division. They're going to finish in the top three, I think, probably second. And if they can replicate what they did last year, it's going to be another fun summer. But again, it's almost entirely dependent on goaltending. And if Levi is back sooner rather than later, then I think that they'll be in good shape and they can make a run like they did a year ago.
I like how you said summer, because that is accurate, because spring is a myth in our town. We're still in winter right now, and spring will be here for 2 days. And if you miss it, you miss it here. They lost to Hershey last year, Tim, because that was the team that was so buttoned up on the blue line, I thought. And that was kind of the one thing where you look back like, well, yeah, that was really fun. But I wasn't upset thinking, boy, we were the better team. Those are the ones that torture you. Like for Bills fans, 13 seconds. That tortures every Bills fan, right? Didn't torture me. Maybe I'm wrong on this when you just take a look back and, okay, Hershey was probably the better team.
It was a bummer when it ended, because I think that everybody in this town knew that the Amherst could have won every single one of those games that they lost. But yeah, looking back on it, like they lost to the better team. At the time, it sucked, but reflecting, Hershey was and remains the best team in the American Hockey League right now. So there's no shame in losing to them. It just sucks that they didn't beat them.
The thing that I'm hoping here is that Buffalo does, I don't know what Antoine Wahlberg is all about here, Tim, and there's plenty of time to find this out. I'm just hoping that Seth Appert is given the latitude to make decisions on whatever is best to win the darn game, and not to look at prospects here in April of the postseason. How do they look on the PK? How do they look on the power play? No, I think there's another time and place for that, but I'm afraid the Buffalo is going to make decisions from up top here on the lineup.
Yeah, that's a tough pull, because last year you had Matt Savoy, who couldn't crack the lineup during the playoffs, and he is one of their premier prospects. Wahlberg is a good player, but he's not Savoy. So if Savoy couldn't crack the lineup last year come playoff time, I'm not sure Wahlberg will see the ice. But again, he's here now rather than come playoff time, so he's got a month to adjust to the American Hockey League. So he'll probably play a lot now, and if he can't crack it in the regular season, he'll probably sit in the stands for playoff games. But Savoy coming up is actually the one that intrigues me the most, because once that junior season ends, he showed in his limited time here to begin the season that he is ready to make that leap from juniors to the American Hockey League. They just had that stupid rule where they're not allowed to, so he isn't.
It is a stupid rule. Some of these rules here, Tim, and I was going to get to this a little bit here. I don't know if you followed the whole RIT story, but it's funny. It's funny how, if I said, hey, here's your top player and here's your top goaltender, and goaltender is one of the best in the nation, they're going to go pro. We'd all be like, okay, yep, that I understand that. But still, they're not going to be here, but they're going to be somewhere else, but it's somewhere else at the same level. That just hits you differently. It just hits you like, boy, we still have work to do here.
the transfer portal has pretty much crucified the non-Power 5 sports, and hockey's different to an extent because the football programs don't really have the NIL power at hockey that they do for basketball. But it's the same thing. Like the basketball programs, like my beloved St. Bonaventure and your glorious Fordham Rams, they don't have a chance anymore because all those guys that bust out are going to leave for Power 5 schools. And pretty much that's what's happening with Scarfoni and Wilkie. They're going to get an opportunity to play at a Big Ten level school and then go pro rather than go pro right out of RIT. And that sucks for RIT because they're homegrown talents. They should be here, and they should be leaving here to go pro, not taking their talents elsewhere for money or exposure. And good for them. You take the money and run, I suppose. But something old school in me says, like, when you commit to that university, you stay at that university and you bring that university as much glory as you're capable of giving, not taking the advantage of the opportunity given to you just so you can go and elsewhere with it.
Tim, I would hope that money doesn't play anything because I'm not up on NIL when it comes to college hockey. I can't even, maybe like a North Dakota has like, some money laying around or like a Big Ten school or something like that. But I also think part of the conversation is Atlantic hockey. That's as good as you're going to get because you can beat teams like Notre Dame as RIT did last year. You can beat a hockey's team like New Hampshire. But because of the conference, you're only going to be seeded 15th. And that's the only exception I would give here is like, hey, you know what? I want to win while I'm in college here. I want to win the whole thing. I don't know if that's part of it too. But what I would kind of throw the flag on is this narrative that, hey, I want to make it to the NHL, and my best chance is to go play in Hockey East, and Tim, they're going to find you wherever. Like, I would think that scouts...
Hockey's different.
Yeah.
Hockey's different in that regard because most of the guys that end up in the NHL never play college hockey. Granted, that's changed a bit over the last 10 years or so, but if you're playing Division I hockey, chances are you're doing it because you weren't capable, that's not the right word, but not capable of playing at the junior level in Canada and then getting the exposure there like you've got, like with McDavid. Like Eichel's different. He was an American-born player playing in Boston. But most of these RIT guys are Canadians, and they were given an opportunity to succeed at RIT, and they did it.
Yeah, I feel kind of jilted here. But, Tim, last one here, and explain this to me like I'm 5 years old, right?
I'll try.
The Bonaventure story about the NIT and in the AD not having the knowledge, or how did that all go? And then he's out of a job in the end. Did he really get fired for making that executive decision?
Yeah, I need it explained to me like I'm a 5-year-old, so I don't know if I'll succeed in your request. But from my understanding, they pulled themselves out of NIT contention prior to being invited, but based on the field, they absolutely would have been invited. An invite wasn't extended because they said don't bother, and we didn't find that out until that graphic showed up during it was Ohio State, Georgia, or whatever it was in the NIT that first round, and the players didn't know, alumni didn't know, fans didn't know. It sounds like it was a Coach Mark Schmidt and AD Tim Manhurt's decision. And even the president, it sounds like, forced Manhurts out the door after that happened because the blowback the following week was pretty bad for St. Bonaventure. And why are you begging us to donate and spend and create this NIL fund and then not use those players in a national television game for a program that has 2,000 undergrads and the only reason most of these people know about St. Bonaventure is through the basketball program?
The only exception, but this didn't happen, right? Like if you, and this is a whole other topic. I hate the timing of the portal for basketball, for hockey. Like the idea that, okay, like the bids are going out, but the portal opens at the same time. You might bag out if you only have 7 players. You don't have enough guys that want to go do this, or you might say, straw poll who wants to continue playing guys, and then no, we're not going to play there. But that wasn't the story here at all, correct? Like you would have had enough willing and able bodies to go be in the NIT.
They had guys that entered the portal prior to the NIT beginning, but I think that had they known that an invite was going to be extended and they would still be playing, they would have held off. And even still, if you're entering the portal, whatever, see ya. But also you have an obligation to finish out your career here or your time here. go play that game, and if you win, you keep going, and it brings more exposure to you. Your portal experience will be greater if you show out in the NIT on national television. And if you don't, then okay, see ya. At least you fulfilled your yearly obligation to this university.
What do Bonnie fans think of Schmidt right now, Tim?
He hasn't said a word, not one peep out of Mark Schmidt during all this. So I'm rattled by it because he's the face of the university no matter what. The AD is the face because he's got the job title, but Mark Schmidt is the face of St. Bonaventure University. He has not said a single word about this. So I'm irked by that, and hopefully by the beginning of next season, maybe during media day 6 months down the line, we'll get some answers. But I think that he considers it a closed story because the AD's gone and he hasn't had to speak out about it.
Well, I mean, whoever they hire as the AD, I'd like to get that AD on our show here, Tim, to say, what happened here? Like,
I know a guy. I might be able to make that happen.
Yeah, like what? Okay, yeah, like what happened? Like, can you explain this to us? Because we had this cool annual event. By annual, I mean wasn't on a set day, but you could always count on the Bonnies being in town, bringing in some. It didn't have to be like this Power 5 team. They brought in St. John's one time. They brought in Virginia Tech, which was really great, and it could have been a St. Joe's. It could have been Fordham. It was that Fordham game. You had close to 7,000. Tim, and for a town, it felt like there were Bonnie supporters, there's people that love college basketball, and was like, yeah, you know what? Here's a team that's not far away. Love this team in Bonaventure. So why don't they come back anymore?
I wish I had answers because, I get the school not wanting to lose a home game at the RC. That's a massive home court advantage. But if you do it when the students are out of town on Christmas break or semester break or whatever, they're not losing anything other than a couple of townies that have to travel a couple hours to Rochester, New York to watch a Division I basketball game in an arena 4 times the size of their own. The home court feel isn't necessarily there, but the atmosphere is still electric for a city rooting on a school that's 2.5 hours away. I've got friends that go to those games just because they love college basketball. I go because I love St. Bonaventure University. But you've gone before, and you liked it because it's college basketball at the highest level, and it's right here at home.
Yeah, I think it's great for our community, and it's a shame that, and maybe they'll bring it back at some point, but you're right about it being the holiday time. Do it around there, eliminate that objection. But I'm going to flick away one thing I've heard, from various people, Tim, well, it's tough to get opposing teams to come into Rochester. Really, as compared to Olean? What are you talking about? Get out of here. That's nonsense.
No, you're not pulling in a St. John's or Virginia Tech over to the Riley Center, but you can get him to come to Rochester, and it's not really a conference foe's choice. If you're having a neutral site game in Rochester, you just tell them, hey, George Mason, instead of flying to Buffalo and then taking an hour-and-a-half bus ride to Olean, you're going to just fly into the Greater Rochester Regional Airport, and you're going to play at the BCA instead. And they're going to say, oh, okay.
Yeah, now that Boeheim is gone, we ever get the Bonnies back on the schedule for the Orange? In Olean or maybe Rochester?
I will probably say absolutely never again in Olean just because the ACC schools have no obligation or need to do that. But playing them at the Dome would be pretty fun to do again. But St. Bonaventure might beat them, so they're probably a little apprehensive in doing that. They might even pull Colgate off the schedule the way that they've struggled with in the last few years.
Wow. Tim Schneider has takes. Tim, you will be in on Wednesday, correct?
I will be here.
All right.
We're there.
All right. Well, we'll have. Are you wearing Bonnie's gear tonight? Are you going to be able to spot you tonight on television?
I am wearing a yellow St. Bonaventure shirt, mostly in faux Iowa fandom. But I have a Cleveland jacket on under it because at the end of the day, that's the goal for these women's teams that they want to end up in next week, the Final Four in Cleveland. And being a Guardians fan after taking care of Oakland for the most part, I'm in baseball mode.
See, I had this big plan, Tim, for us that St. John Fisher, the women, would have advanced to the championship game, and they will at some point. But they got knocked out, and I think what's cool is that was going to be like the undercard, if you will, like the opening act there, the Division III.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, that would have been fun watching that all happen in a weekend in Cleveland. Tim, have fun tonight. I'll be watching, and appreciate you giving us your perspective today, and we'll talk to you Wednesday.
Sure thing. Happy to do it, and I will see you in a couple days.
Sounds good. Tim Schneider, who was in Albany. Now, Dan, the thing I pull out of that is this, that, the idea, and you go back to last year where you have, hey, NCAA, here's the video of what you do for the men's tournament, and here's what you do for the women's tournament. Ugh. And it was bad. It's like for Title IX purposes, that's wrong. Now you have this, hey, the court is wrong in Portland, Oregon. Does that ever happen for the men? I would imagine that you should have somebody checking that for both the men and the women. Somebody didn't do their job, obviously. But the idea that you have ridiculously long lines to the point where you don't want to have a beverage just because you don't want to go to the bathroom eventually. It sounds like they haven't put any work into that arena. And that arena, mind you, like, why hasn't an AHL team ever stuck there ever? Now, you could say, well, it's because it's a college hockey town. Okay, well, we're a college hockey town, too. Well, there's not that many people. Well, not many. There's more people there than in all Utica, okay, or Belleville, or some of these other outpost towns in the American Hockey League. And again, my bias here is that I'm jealous. I wish we had this event, and Albany struck gold. They put this bid in. Siena did years ago, and step number one is you have to have a Division I program that will actually put in said bid. And since we don't have a Division I basketball team, I can't even have this conversation in theory here.
Yeah. I really can't even.
Yeah, you can just say, Gene, you're making salient points.
Gene, you're right.
Yes.
You're always right.
There we go.
You're never wrong. You've never steered me wrong. You always have the right answer for everything.
See, put that in the show open tomorrow at 10, and we'll be good. I've got more thoughts on RIT. Yes, we're going a little more local today, but we will get to the Bills. 13 Wem Stan Fates to join us coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour. Time for your calls here at area code 585. If you live in Rochester, you know that. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Danger's out this week. My name is Gene Battaglia, along with Dan Drummy, here in the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Let's tip off with March Madness.
The men's Final Four, which is now set for this upcoming weekend in Phoenix.
Alabama against UConn, Purdue, and NC State.
NC State, the darlings of this tournament.
Cinderella.
The thing I want to see most is UConn play Purdue. I want to see Zach Edey played out in the clean.
I Purdue with Purdue.
Switch here to UConn for a second.
And our fan base, again, is obnoxious as on social, so everyone hates us.
Mike Danger.
We both have the same team cutting down the nets when it's all said and done. That would be the UConn Huskies.
Gene Battaglia.
Chances are you like Rochester, and you like Rochester sports. LeBron!
My name is Luca.
Tonight in women's basketball, Elite Eight action as LSU and Iowa, they will face off. Second game of the night features USC battling UConn.
And you've got the three-point lines wrong on a court?
Had they found Rashee Rice yet?
Yankees win. And Frozen 4.
Carter Wilkie.
Did he enter the transfer portal?
Tommy Scarfone.
Because he's Italian!
It's April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day.
No!
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Yeah, spare me the April Fool's jokes today, as we're going to kind of have some balance here in the sports bar. Thanks for tuning in. Gene Battaglia with you here in my favorite town of Rochester. We invite your calls, 866-4326, 866-4FAN. Danger is down in Florida, family vacation. He will be back for Eclipse Day, which is 1 week from today, in case didn't know. I would like to talk some Buffalo Bills football coming up with Dan Fates. That'll be in a little bit, and did not expect, very sad to see this story today, where Vontae Davis no longer with us. Now, police are not saying much, although they're saying they don't suspect foul play, but they're continuing their investigation. He was found in his home. Kind of looks like your mansion, like down 30 miles north of Miami. And unfortunately, like on a day like today, what we remember about Vontae Davis is how it ended here in Buffalo. How it ended unlike any other player's tenure. If he had just waited until after the game and walked into Sean McDermott's office and said, I can't do this anymore. My heart isn't in this. I'm really sorry. But I feel like, you know what? He wouldn't have been this punchline. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't have been, but the fact that you had something that never happened before. And, you know, what's kind of making the rounds today, too, and I really wish it wouldn't, but like, you know, the clip of LaShawn McCoy and Tre'Davious White where they're goofing on this afterward. But the one point that I think it's Trey White bringing up, like, why did you go through all this? Like, you know, OTAs and training camp, because players hate all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's when you get to the games, and when you get to the games, you get paid. Well, it wasn't about that for Vontae Davis. And when we talked to him, that training camp leading into that season was Josh Allen's rookie year. He's talking about how he loves to travel and how he wants to do more of that. And you could tell that at that point when you listen back to it. And I'm not going to play it today, because I think that would not be appropriate. But it's a little haunting that you know, now all these dreams are gone. So Vontae Davis, who we should point out too, I mean, he did. You know, had a DUI back in November, so that was also part of the story here. Vontae Davis gone with us at the age of 35. You can reach us on X, as Dan DeLorean, our producer today, still calls it Twitter, whatever you want to say. Greetings from Zurich, Switzerland, where I'm 5 hours ahead of you. Sorry, won't be able to listen. That's Chris writing in. And it just looks like... some like sort of airport shop. You ever go shopping in an airport? I do not. They're just time killers, right? I don't have the Jones to kind of go in there, but you know you're like in a really nice airport if you have something more than just your Hudson News or something like that.
It's probably good if you have like that, like a layover time, or you can if you have the time. But yeah, I imagine you could get lost in one of those, you know, one of the spacious ones.
Yeah, like the one in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh, I don't know. I haven't been to the Pittsburgh airport in years, but I remember going there years ago. I'm like, wow, this is like a mall in here. You know, like you get to the bigger hubs. So yeah, Chris, appreciate you writing in, even though you're not listening. Again, our handle, The Fan Rochester, where I was engaging with a lot of people yesterday, like, what the heck? Did not expect on Easter Sunday to wake up and see RIT lose two of their players to the portal. And you could say, well, Gene, I don't really, RIT hockey is not my thing. Well, you like college sports, this should be your thing because this really kind of hits home. Like if I told you that RIT lost their top player and their stud goalie to the pros, we'd be like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like you're moving on up. But if I told you RIT is losing their top player and their stud goalie to the portal, just hit the microphone there.
Yep.
It's like a slap across the face. Like, how does that... It stings differently, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And it is not an RIT thing. This is college athletics. And we were joined by Tim Schneider earlier. And this is what's going to end up happening, folks, is that we always say follow the money. And this is not a follow the money instance, mind you. But you want the opportunity. Now you could say, well, Scarfoni is leaving because of NIL money. Scarfoni is leaving because, well, he wants a different degree, and the school that he's going to go to offers this different degree. Spare me. That's not it at all. Okay, I think Kevin O'Klubja lays it out pretty well in his Pick and Splinters article. I'm glad that Kevin is still providing us content. Wilkie was not a surprise. Wilkie, I expected to say he was going to go to the pros. I'm not being mean when I tell you this, okay? Right now for Carter Wilkie, he's an American Hockey League player. Mm-hmm. Maybe more ECHL. I don't think whatever advice he's getting about the NHL, look, go chase your dream. I'm not saying don't do that, but the idea that you think that's a better path, that you're going to go to some Big Ten school or Hockey East or whatever it is, scouts will find you, okay? They will find you. If you're doing this, and I don't think this is it because I want to go I want to make it to a Frozen Four. Well, I don't know if that's the case either here. But I can tell you this, and this is the problem RIT finds themselves in here. And it's not just an RIT thing, going back to you're a mid-major. And in college basketball, mid-majors, the A10 is a mid-major, the MAC. Pick them all, okay? Unless you're Power 5, and I'm going to throw in the Big East there, you can have your top there. But if you're a mid-major and you want better opportunity for yourself and you didn't get recruited by the big guys, now I can go get recruited once again. RIT plays in Atlantic hockey. And RIT this year had their best year, best season in years. We'll put it that way. That the idea that you not only beat Notre Dame, you shut out Notre Dame. You were seconds away from a weekend sweep of New Hampshire, who plays in Hockey East. You played well against Maine. The Tigers did. You beat Clarkson. You did things that a top college hockey program would do, okay? But the difference between college basketball and college hockey is this. College basketball, we could debate this. What is the better system? College basketball, time for the tournament show. And welcome. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday night, and we're going to tell you who gets in the tournament, but, this message from Flo with Progressive Insurance, whatever it is. They make it a TV show, and you really don't know. They don't have that show in college hockey because we already know who gets in. In fact, you already know what the seeding is. They call it the pairwise. It's a computer. Here it is. And you factor in the automatic bids, and voila, 16 teams. And because RIT plays in Atlantic hockey, they're the 15th seed. Hockey is a weird sport where you can, one night, as they did against Mercyhurst, goalie stands on his head, makes 51 saves, you lose. But because you lost to a Mercyhurst, it's going to drag you down there. So that's the problem RIT finds themselves in. I don't know if there's a solution. Tom wrote to me. Tom wrote in, Gene, saw your show on Friday. Appreciate you talking Tiger hockey. Has there been any discussion about the Tigers leaving Atlantic hockey? I can tell you this, not by any decision makers to my knowledge. And, everybody's saying everything correctly above board. Now, what the hope is here, now that RIT can give scholarships where you're losing your top playmaker, you're losing your top goaltender, you're going to bring more into the system. You're going to bring more in. But it's funny how I think like the Bonaventure story and the RIT story, they're all kind of connected. Anybody who is not in the top league is going to have to fight this year after year. And I would just kind of question like these two players. If your goal is, hey, on my resume, I want to win a college championship, okay. I think RIT would have definitely been in the tournament last year, and you would have been 4 wins away. So I don't know what's inside of both these young men's heads. That Carter Wilkie thought he was going to go pro, and he didn't get it, and now maybe if he plays on a bigger school that he would do this. To me, maybe it sounds old-fashioned. You play the 4 or 5 years, you get your degree, and now you have a legacy. Wayne Wilson has a role on the team. And you learned this from Kevin LeClub's article. The rule is this. Once you go to the portal, that's it. Sorry. You don't want to be here? You're not allowed to kind of go and get re-recruited and then come back. And I think Wayne is absolutely correct in that, because then every year you would have players kind of testing the waters. It's one thing if you want to, in the NBA, declare for the NBA draft and then see, oh, okay, am I going to be a first rounder? Maybe not. I'm not going to sign with that agent, so I'm going to come back to Syracuse. That's a different story. Again, turning pro is one thing. Going into the portal and surveying your options, you can't come back. I'm sorry. Like, are you part of the program, or are you going to compete against us? Because you can't do that. And from what a club show's reporting, Wilkie, not a surprise. Again, Wilkie was the player that you thought would go to the pros, and whether that was the ECHL, the AHL, and when he apparently didn't, this was kind of the other option, didn't like it. It was Scarfoni that completely caught everyone off guard to the point it was a shock. 925 save percentage. What would you say is good? 90%? That would be really good. Yeah. 925 is lights out. And when you have a goaltender like that, everything else sets up nicely. Now, for the Tigers next year, who's in goal? I don't know who they're bringing in, but now our team might have to go in themselves and looking in the portal. Or maybe they can, they're appealed to the NCAA, and then Luke Lush, who came over from Sacred Heart, if he still has some credits on his masters, maybe he can, get another year. But that was kind of a gut punch yesterday on Easter Sunday, that these two men chose to leave RIT. And I would just question both of them. Tommy Scarfoni, first of all, you should have had a conversation with your coaches. You should have. Mm-hmm. For Carter Wilkie, I'm sorry, go prove me wrong. Go prove me wrong. Go make it to the NHL someday. Because I just see you right now as being, he's got a really good shot, Dan. He can skate really well. But there's just so many guys like that in hockey right now.
Well, yeah.
It's tough.
I don't think it's easy just a school like RT, not that they're not a big name, but you just don't see many big players. I think you think of Chris Tanev, and I think there's one or two other guys who played pro who also played at RIT, but you just don't see them as much. It's not that nothing against the Tigers, it's just that.
But full stop. That's because they didn't give scholarships before. So now the idea, you're going to have more guys kind of coming through the system here. The thing, do you want to talk about a roller coaster? Because you go back, just count this out, 8 days ago, before the news broke yesterday. Tigers win Atlantic hockey.
Yeah.
4,300 in that arena, edge of their seat, great environment. Yes. And winning it on your home ice, and then you leave 8 days later. Hockey is the sport where I think above all, you would say football, but hockey is a team sport. Mm-hmm. It really is. You need 4 lines. You need all this 3 defensive pairs. You need all, in college hockey, you dress 19. You need all 19 guys. Mm-hmm. And so for 8 days after you win the thing, now you're going to leave? Kind of self-centered. And again, for Carter Wilkie, if he's just jonesing to go pro and he didn't get the offer he was hoping, okay, so tell me how did that work out for Will Calvary? Tell me. And for Tommy Scarfoni, hey, you can go, you're going to have your choice, bud. You can go to wherever. All right, reading the Notre Dame message boards. Wow, we really like him. You know, he could go play in the Big Ten. Dude, they would have found you. They would have. Like, you could have been back in Rochester on the RIT campus as king. You know, like, you look at that Frozen Four team, they come back for the reunion 10 years later. They are kings. And now, yeah, you're just like everybody else in college sports. So, sharing my honest thoughts on that. Dan Fates in 13 win. We will talk some Buffalo Bills. Get Dan's thoughts on the sad passing of Vontae Davis. And, yeah, he's going to make fun of us, Dan, about our Mets fandom. Although you as a Met fan are just, not that you're level-headed, you're just negative. You're negative.
If you want to call me negative, I'll allow it today. I think I'm way more realistic with the Mets, where I know that I look at the roster and I just don't see it, Gino. And I'm definitely jealous and envious of what the Braves have.
Listen, I'm not fine, but I can enjoy small moments. And like I had a small moment that was completely ruined by Dan, and I just want to tell him that. Dan Faith will be joining us next year in the Sports Bar. We have time for your calls also later this hour, just in case you didn't know the number, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It's the Sports Bar on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. Top shelf sports talk. You're hanging out in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
By the way, where's Mr. Mouth Fates? Where's Mr. Mouth Catalana? Like Catalana, great showing by the Phillies this week. 1 run.
Stop, Gene. Stop, Gene.
Yes, Mets brave. Let's do this.
Don't do this to yourself.
The Mets are really socking the ball.
Don't do this to yourself.
By the way, where?
Yeah, thank you.
Where's Mr. Mouth? Where's Mr. Mouth?
Thank you, Dan. Yes, those were happier times. I'm sitting at home, kind of half watching at this point because on Saturday the Brewers are having their way, and my wife is in the kitchen and she's yelling from the other room, "Hey, your phone is buzzing," and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh, it's a text from Dan. Your team is pathetic on multiple levels. McNeil is a baby, and your staff doesn't even know how to hit a batter on purpose." Dan Fate's joining us on the program right now. Dan, would it surprise you if I told you that you're right?
No, because this has honestly made it easier for you. This start has eased you into what you said you were going to do this year of not caring, because they're more embarrassing than I expected.
We are a team in transition, and McNeil will not be the second baseman of the future. But if there's one thing that upset me, and this is the code, and we could debate, the unwritten rules of baseball, because quite honestly, they're kind of dumb. But since they are the way they are, Rhys Hoskins, you do that in the first at bat, not when he's gone 3 for 3. What are we doing?
First at bat.
First at bat.
I thought, honestly, the way that McNeil was so upset, I was like, there is a world where he sits out the next game. Like, that the Brewers manager's like, I don't want him to get beamed in the back. So, let's not have him in the lineup. I thought that was a possibility because it was such a foregone conclusion that he was going to get beamed that I just couldn't fathom the fact of, you're putting that guy out there to play dodgeball. And then I see that he gets hit and benches clear and all this stuff. And because they're so irrelevant, I wasn't even paying attention. And then I find out he was 3 for 3, and then you threw it at his ear hole. What are you doing?
Yeah, and then Hoskins pointing to his midsection, not up high, what are you doing is right. It was one of those plays when you saw in real time, Dan Fate's 13 wham, where oh, that's a dirty slide. But then you look at it again and it was a hard slide, but we just wussified all of sports here. That used to be part of the game. You're the second baseman, you might get taken out. And to see McNeil kind of overreact, I'm like, oh, I can't defend that. And credit the SNY announcers, they all didn't defend it too. They said, hey, that was actually a legal play.
Yeah, I credit the SNY announcers. Great team. I love Gary Cohen. And they had 2 right. They said that it was a hard slide. It was a little bit late, which I agree with, but they said it wasn't dirty. The umpires reviewed it for a dirty slide. It wasn't. And 2, they also were like, you can't beam the guy after he's gone 3 for 3 with a home run off you. What are you doing? There is some sense of that's what's really dumb still about baseball, and we can talk about unwritten rules in all of the sports. But the one thing that I do find silly is that it's okay, this guy's going to get hit now with a baseball because he maybe hit a home run off you and watched it for too long. It's if the guy hits a ball 450 feet, he should be able to do cartwheels around the bases. Don't let him hit the ball that far. But when it came to this, it's all right, the starting pitcher, your job is to go out there and put one into his ribs. And they didn't. And then he went 3 for 3, and all that happened. Look, I also thought Jeff McNeil was a tough-nosed, blue-collar guy that would understand, I'm going in there to break up a double play. They have protected the catchers, they have protected middle infielders on all of these things. But you can still, I thought, go in hard and try and break up a double play. Otherwise, what's the point of running? And as a Braves fan, if I wanted to be salty, I'd say McNeil has done dirty slides against us, but I won't go there because I'm above that right now.
Well, I think that this goes back to whatever happened in Philadelphia. It's Hoskins, and it was him doing this. And what I thought also was telling was, okay, both benches kind of clear, and everybody's just kind of standing around, Okay, just this is what we have to do, I suppose. But it was like the lamest bench clearing. I don't even know what to call it. It's like everybody just kind of came out and be like, okay, I guess we have to support you at this point. But
because that's what was so funny was that like Hoskins had no engagement until like, and it was kind of weird because like McNeil was like over top of him, kind of screaming and yelling, and you're like, Reese, like, I guess I would have gotten in his face if the guy's yelling at me. But, like, nobody thought it was dirty except for McNeil. Like, he was the only one who, like, was adamant. And everybody else was just like, we really have to come out here for this? Like, this is what we're coming out of the dugouts for? Like, seriously? I don't know, man.
No. Dan, I can't look. You're going to have a much more calmer. It may not be great for radio if I'm not getting upset every other day or getting too excited every other day.
Yeah.
But at least I'm going to shut down you and Catalana. You can attack me and Met fans. What's the fun in that now?
Yeah, if you're going to be like play possum, it's not really going to be a ton of fun. If you just let us rope-a-dope you to submission. It's not going to be all that much fun.
No, you're going to have to just kind of find something else here. Dan, while we got you for a few minutes, Dan Fates 13 Wham Buffalo Plus. Before I kind of hit you on some Bills questions, your thoughts on Vontae Davis. And I had this. I hate the fact that part of the story here is we have to point out how it ended. And had he just waited until the end of the game and said to Sean McDermott, hey, coach, I'm really sorry. I can't do this anymore. You would have had a press conference and everybody would have been like, okay, but because it was something that had never been done in the NFL before, it became this major story at the time.
Yeah, and it's not funny, obviously, now looking in the grand scheme of a man's life is lost, but like I always remember it was so jarring because do you remember when Anquan Boldin was a Buffalo Bill?
Yes.
For like 4 days? And like he kind of just showed up, did a couple practices and then left. And it really wasn't a story. It really is kind of it's like you have to be a really big Bills fan to even like joke around that like when Bolden does something, you can tweet like former Buffalo Bill Anquan Boldin. Like that's where it is. But unfortunately with Vontae Davis, a lot of the story of his football career is that he retired at halftime. And then, you have the stories of LaShawn McCoy and Tre'Davious White. And then I also believe he did an ad deal with a gambling site at one point that was like you can cash out at half of a game. Like I give him credit for leaning into it at that point. He obviously didn't care, and that's fine. It's your prerogative. It's your career. It did obviously become at the time, that was kind of an ugly look for a team that wasn't very good that year. But obviously sad to see the way that it ended.
Dan Fates 13 Wham joining us here in the sports bar. Dan, I feel like I'm having this take, part to brace Buffalo Bills fans, other to say maybe it's a smart thing to do, that they won't go wide receiver in the first round, that you can fill that need in later rounds. Because honestly, Dan, on the defensive line right now, I would put either that as 1B or 1A, but I'm looking at the safeties as well, and Danger and I have this debate on Taylor Rapp, and I don't know where you come down. I'm like, no, that ain't it. Danger's like, well, they gave him 3 years. I'm like, no, that's not really a 3-year deal. And Mike Edwards, I don't know. Like, I don't feel too confident about the safeties. So I'm thinking, well, if there's a Cooper DeJean or there's a Chop Robinson, if there's somebody like that can be the young, exciting guy in defense, Dan, where do you come down on drafting the wide receiver versus all these defensive needs?
So 2 parts. One, I'm all in on a wide receiver in the first round. And I'm all in on possibly trading up to get a wide receiver. I am all in on what I think that's a massive need for this team. I understand, and look, I'm not a massive Taylor Rapp fan by any means. I thought he was okay at the end of the year. I thought in the beginning of the year, I didn't think he looked great. I know he played better at the end. But I've thought about this in the sense of, we didn't really think Jordan Poyer was anything when the Bills signed him. We knew Micah Hyde was good. He was good. But we didn't think he would be Micah Hyde like he is in Buffalo. And that's credit to Sean McDermott. And that's credit to guys like Bobby Babich. And they know how to coach him up. And I think this is a little bit of them believing in themselves that if you give me anybody back there, I can put him in positions to be successful. So even though Mike Edwards, pretty much a career backup, that they're saying, hey, like, we think that we can coach him up to be a solid starter. And I can't really disagree with him because I was there when Jordan Poyer was introduced, and I never thought of asking him a real what's it going to be like when you're here for 7 years and you turn this team around? So I think that the Bills kind of look and say I can turn. Also, DeMar Hamlin was playing pretty damn good safety too, and he had 98 tackles or close to 100 tackles when he filled in for Micah Hyde. So I think that have a little faith in the coaching staff to get me or Danger to play some pretty good safety. That being said, I understand the defensive line. To me, I think they've swung and missed a lot in the first 2 rounds, so I'm nervous for them to go back there again. But, Gene, to me, when I'm talking about a lot of these wide receivers, and I know there's a deep wide receiver draft, and hey, guess what? There's going to be a deep wide receiver class next year, and guess what? The year after that, there's also going to be a deep wide receiver class, and I would guarantee in 2027 there'll also be a deep wide receiver class. But there's a few guys that are elite. And to sit there and say, well, we'll wait and get another guy sure, you can get a Khalil Shakir or Gabe Davis. Those guys are fine. But you want a game-changing guy, your best chance to me is to take shots in the first round. And I know we've talked a lot about versatility, and that's what I hear a lot about. And you hear right now a lot of time at this time of the talk of the draft is you hear about what players can't do. I don't care what a player can't do. I want to know what a player can do. And I don't need versatility. I don't need my first-round pick to be A's at 5 different categories. But if he's A-pluses in 3 of them, and his run blocking isn't great, he's a C, and, this thing he also, this is his efforts a B. Those A-pluses are pretty damn good, and I want those guys. My point is that versatility is great for your 3, 4, and 5 wide receivers or your back end of your roster. But versatility, and Gene, you can understand this, if you're a utility player in the MLB, that means you're really versatile. That means you're not good enough to be a starter. And it's kind of a knock. It's kind of a backhanded compliment. I don't need you to be elite at everything. I need you to be elite at a couple of really good things, like a guy that can take the top off a defense or track a ball or do things like that. And my comparison is Spencer Strider. He's the best pitcher in baseball because he has 2 pitches, not because he has 5. He's got 2. And nobody sits there and goes, his changeup, really isn't, changeup's not that great. Who cares? He only needs 2 pitches. I want guys that are comparison to boxing. He's really good at jabbing and defending and all these things. I take the guy that has a Mike Tyson right hand. I want a guy that can wow a defense and be a game-changing playmaker because that's what I feel like the Bills lack, and I think there's 5 wide receivers in this class that can do that.
Heck, Strider has 2. Mariano Rivera had 1.
Exactly.
made the Hall of Fame. Dan Fates, our guest here. And your point about versatility, I think Ryan Bates, okay, well, that got you a 5th-round pick. And that's kind of where I'm leading. My next question here for you is that, wow, when the Bills have all these picks, more than they've had in how many years, you're thinking, wow, this is the ammunition. Brandon Beane needs to move on up. But I would make this argument, Dan, and Sean McDermott's on the competition committee, when you look at this new kickoff rule and that special teams, they need a complete makeover on special teams. Tyler Matakevich, already gone as Surreal Neal. You're going to need guys to really set things up. You're going to need returners, guys that I don't know if you bring back a Deontay Hardy, but do you see those picks just fortifying depth and having guys that can play special teams as well, or doing what we expect from Brandon Beane, that's moving up the 4 or 5, how many ever slots in the first round?
I'd really like to see him move up, and I mean that also in the sense of this may be the weakest draft class because, Gene, when you think about it, I think this is the fewest underclassmen that have ever been in the NFL draft. I think it's only 45 underclassmen because players are staying longer because of the NIL money. So you're getting kind of a watered-down pool, especially in the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders, that these guys are fringe roster guys to begin with. So why wouldn't you try and package them up and move forward to get a guy that can actually make an impact on your roster? So when everybody says, the Bills look at all these picks. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really rough day 3, if I'm being honest. And from what I'm hearing from other people is that, it's just not a class you can sit there and go, you can find steals in the day 30. I don't know about that. So, yeah, I do have some concerns about all of the Bills' picks being late and staying put when I would move up.
Dan Fates 13 Wham joining us. Dan, while I have you here, because you are a hockey guy, and I think when we look at the portal came home to Rochester, like the downside of this. Like if you were a mid-major in any sport, in basketball or certainly football, but now even in hockey, the idea that in one swoop, boom, 8 days after you win your conference championship, you're going to lose one of the best goalies you ever had and your top playmaker. That was as bad as it could have gone for RIT.
Yeah, and how tough is it to be a coach? I feel for those guys that, I mean, you hear about it more in basketball and football. They got so many guys on the roster. You're trying to play the best players while also trying to make happy the guys that aren't playing because within an instant they're leaving. It's tough. Those guys deserve a chance to play on a bigger stage, but I wish it was, they graduated and you get that fifth year, right? That's what it used to be. It kind of sucks that now it's being used as free agency more than anything. So tough to lose two guys. Again, I think that I like NIL. I'm a fan of NIL. Players should be able to get their money. I'm not a fan of the transfer portal. The pendulum has swung too far the other way, where it used to be such a pain in the ass for kids to transfer. Now all of a sudden it's gone the other way, where it's too easy for them to transfer, and they're abusing the privilege, and now it's kind of watering down all of the it's watering down the whole sport.
Yeah,
and now all sports.
There's another thing I really don't like about this, and it's the timing of this, Dan. Like, you have the NCAA bracket unveiled on Sunday night, and the next day the portal opens? What are you kidding? Like, why can't you give kids a happy... I understand everybody wants to get a start on this season, but can you give it a little bit of time here in all these sports?
Exactly. And also, that's a great point, too, because players can be upset about coaching decisions, the way the season ended, and all of a sudden they're making rash decisions of leaving instead of, hey, why don't you take a month, catch your breath, reevaluate what the season is, see what next year's going to hold for your school that you're currently at, and then go from there. But everything has to be, everything's at the tip of our fingertips. Everything has to be decided in an instant. And because of that, again, I think players are losing some of that, losing some of. Again, here I am as a washed-up Division III baseball player to say, well, players should stay where they are. But it's just a sense of like, hey, like there should be some competition. And guess what? Not everything goes handed to you. And I think, that's how I was raised. I think that's how a lot of our listeners are probably sitting there kind of thinking the same thing.
Fredonia lost to New Paltz yesterday 30-2, Dan. I don't know if you
They did.
That. Yeah,
they did.
That was
and
a bad day.
I texted my buddies, and I said, we were never a great team. We never gave up 30. Like, we made the SUNYX one year, but we never gave up 30.
Yeah.
That was a rough look.
Yeah, that's or at some point, like I'm all in favor of like running clocks or just like let's wrap it up at some point. Like, but you get to like 15 runs. All right, we're good here. Dan Fates, 13 Wham, joining us here on Buffalo Plus. What can we look forward to on Buffalo Plus here? Is my gosh, Dan, the draft here in a little over 3 weeks.
Yeah, and do you know how much I care about you? I'm off this week. I'm on vacation. Right now,
really?
I'm walking through Wegmans, getting some things for making chicken Caesar salads for dinner for the kids and the wife. But I can't say no to you, Gene. So I do know that Mike and Jenna are recording a podcast right now, running through scenarios of what Brandon Beane could do, trading up, trading back, all of those things. So there will still be a podcast up. And if you missed last week's podcast, it was more about, I went on my rant about versatility in wide receiving and all of those kind of things. So there's plenty of content up there as well as, well, this week I'm trying to, take it easy. So you know me, I'm addicted to the content game. So we'll still have some stuff up there.
Well, Dan, you get a gold star. I appreciate your time. And just for everybody that kind of is jumping in, toward the middle of this conversation, this is what spurred this interview today. This was Dan's text to me on Saturday. Your team, being the Mets, is pathetic on multiple levels. McNeil is a baby. Your staff doesn't even know how to hit a batter on purpose. Me, what can I say? This is a conversation that would be much better on air. Would you have time Monday? And Dan, you were gracious with your time today, buddy.
Always, Dan. Great to talk to you.
Happy vacation. Dan Fates, 13 Wham, joining us in the sports bar. I don't know what to say. Like, Danger thinks this is a bit. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not radio guy, okay? I like to report on sports or whatever. This is not a bit about me, like someday I'm going to fly off the handle about the Mets, or I'm just trying to reinvent myself as a fan so I don't get over my skis anymore. All right? Is there anything wrong with that?
No, but it doesn't make for very good radio, though.
But it's not no, but that's the honest thing. Like, I'm not going to get all angry at this team. What I can say is that he's right on that. Like, for Jeff McNeil to, I'm going to flinch over you, and, I'm trying to stop with that. And then, okay, yeah, you want to throw out Hoskins the next day? Absolutely, go ahead. You do it first time he comes up, and you do it in the bud. And everybody gets a warning, and then you wait till he goes 3 for 3, and you throw at his head. Not very smart.
No. Most embarrassing Mets team since when, Gino?
No, it's only April 1st.
I know, but if things continue to trend this way, as I can see Mr. Meta on the...
yeah, this is Peter writing in.
Oh, no.
Hi, Gene. I read Sal Mayorada's newsletter. The Yankees are 4-0. He tagged you, too.
Oh, well, thank you for tagging me. I appreciate that.
Peter, I guess he's a Yankee fan.
Oh.
Well, look, Yankee, that's impressive. What you did to Houston. How in that one game you're down 4-0, and like it's funny how you read like online and people just jump and live in the moment. You actually came back and won that game.
Didn't they come back and win all their games? Weren't they losing in all 4?
Yeah, look, and Soto was off to a good start for this team. It's April 1st. We can't even have this conversation in June 1st, okay? Like the Braves, the year they won the darn thing, 4th of July, they're below 500. It's that long a season. You know why? Because the law of averages, you need 162 games to figure this out. Now, that being said, the Mets have a flawed roster. The starting pitching's terrible. Like the idea that you went and got this guy off the Yankees who's at the end of his rope, like that was just brutal. So, yeah, it's and the fact that you spent all this money, but I would still wouldn't trade this in for the dark days of Wilpon and his ownership of we have a team, but we're kind of broke because we're in the Bernie Madoff thing. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing when your team can't do anything. Like when the Sabres, like they're bad now, mind you, but at least you have an owner. Like before when they had Regas and like, hey, our owner's going to jail and everything. Like that was bad. That was embarrassing.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So we should be talking about the 4-0 Pirates instead?
Hey, it's early, Dan. Pirates are down in D.C.
Woo!
Yeah. We've got thoughts. You want to weigh in on the Vontae Davis news? We've got other things to talk about here. Happy hour. And again, it's the biggest night for women's college basketball. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the fact that you get the rematch tonight in prime time, curious about the number. Are you going to be tuning in for this or are you not? I'm just curious to get your thoughts. 585-866-4326. Happy hour on the way next. This is Rochester's only sports talk show, The Fan, Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Let's tip off with March Madness.
The men's Final Four, which is now set for this upcoming weekend in Phoenix.
Alabama against UConn, Purdue, and NC State.
NC State, the darlings of this tournament.
Cinderella.
The thing I want to see most is UConn play Purdue. I want to see Zach Edey played out in the clean. I Purdue with Purdue.
Switch here to UConn for a second.
And our fan base, again, is obnoxious as on social, so everyone hates us.
Mike Danger.
We both have the same team cutting down the nets when it's all said and done. That would be the UConn Huskies.
Gene Battaglia.
Chances are you like Rochester, and you like Rochester sports. LeBron!
My name is Luca.
Tonight in women's basketball, Elite Eight action as LSU and Iowa, they will face off. Second game of the night features USC battling UConn.
And you've got the three-point lines wrong on a fourth?
Had they found Rasheed Rice yet?
Yankees win. And Frozen 4.
Carter Wilkie.
Did he enter the transfer portal?
Tommy Scarfone.
Cause he's Italian!
It's April 1st. Happy April Fool's Day.
No.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
What is our town going to look like 1 week from today? Gene Battaglia with you. Mike Danger is off this week, and it's. Let's say I have a family member who works in that public service field, and they're preparing for everything. It's just going to be like an overflow. I remember how our town, when we took in everybody for the PGA, that was great. All these visitors, all the hotel rooms, just get ready. If you're not into it, then you're just going to have to go la 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 la, and it'll kind of deal with it all this week. But of course, this time next week, our rooftop broadcast will be done. Yes, we're not really inviting you, the public. You're just gonna we don't need to hook up, you and I, to look at the sun going away from the sky here. So we just figured it's gonna be tough for anybody to get anywhere from A to B in Rochester next Monday. So what we're gonna do is just go up to the roof. And I'm going to guess that for our audience outside Rochester listening on the free-to-download Odyssey app, people will be kind of tuning in as they normally would. We get a lot of people listening around the country that predominantly want Bills takes or maybe displaced Rochesterians. But the idea that that next Monday, by this time, it'll all be said and done. So, again, we're just going to go up on the rooftop where Danger and I had to sign waivers, not necessarily because our company is afraid that we're going to fall off the roof. It's the fact that it's actually very dangerous to be around high-power radio equipment. That you have these waves going out there, and because as my pen goes across,
Gino, what are you doing?
I talk with my hands, Dan. That's what I do here, and so for some reason, I always put a pen in my hand, so I get myself to stop talking with my hands. And that time, I just knocked the pen right on my hand because I was talking with my hands. Anyhow, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. It's a sign of the times where you want to talk about UConn and what they're doing. You want to talk about NC State and what they're doing as 11th seed. Look, that's fine. We're breaking the format here a little bit today. You're welcome to join us. But the story tonight, right now, it's not really the men's tournament, is it? Yeah, it's down the thruway in Albany where they get to host this big old party. Not just the sports world, but really our country's eyes are going to be looking in Albany tonight. Iowa and LSU, and everybody's got opinions on it, and there's a lot of people making things out that really this shouldn't be. It's a basketball game for crying out loud, and it's some rivals there, and really there isn't anything between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. And yes, Kim Mulkey is the figure that kind of brings a lot on this. But we were joined earlier today by Tim Schneider, and I think we can kind of couple the stories here about tonight and what happened in Portland. Let me go to the Portland story, and we heard in the update, and you might have saw this yesterday, and that this is embarrassing. The NCAA admitted that the three-point line, one side was 9 inches short.
Gino, no.
Nine times. 9 inches short. Well, you could just see it with the eyeball, and so the two teams just agreed, all right, we're just going to play this game and get power through this. Well, for tonight's game between UConn and USC, so it's not a doubleheader in Albany. They're going to go from one game to the other. They're going to go from Albany to Portland. UConn, USC. They fixed that. Okay. But would that have ever happened? I'm just asking here, and would that have ever happened it's hard to kind of imagine that would ever have happened in a men's tournament game. And that's another sidebar thing too. I don't like that they make all these courts uniform. It's like they have basketball courts in every arena, and it's like, takes you, like, where am I watching this game from? Am I watching this from Dallas or Detroit? It doesn't even matter. Just focus on the teams. The NCAA doesn't want you to realize. But I'm wondering tonight if the storyline is going to be about the arena in Albany, let's be quite honest. Iowa LSU, that is an event that is way too big for Albany, New York. Congratulations to Albany, New York. Congratulations to Siena College for landing this. And I'm kind of jealous. I'm not going to deny it. I wish we had something in that town, but we can't because, well, first prerequisite is that you actually need a Division I school to bid on this stuff. We don't have that for basketball. So, but Siena and this arena, I don't even know what the naming rights for the arena are. It's not even germane to it. The fact that the arena was built in the late 80s, early 90s, and they really haven't done anything. When Tim Schneider was kind of describing, he's like, you are waiting in lines, ridiculous lines, just to go to the bathroom. Like, these are things that they weren't kind of anticipating. So, like, the idea that you're going to have this event tonight at an arena that is straight out of the 1980s, folks, when you have all these other top shelf arenas all around the country. Now, NCAA can kind of always point to, we plan this stuff out years in advance, and the idea that that Albany will ever get another event like this, sorry, they won't. Unless they have like an arena that's up to standard. You're going to have other arenas that are going to say, wow, how come we didn't bid on that? He's like, yeah, and I understand, like, you have other places that because, well, you have not one, but multiple tenants. Even in Syracuse, where, like, okay, if you bid on that, then you got to clear out your lacrosse teams, for a couple weeks. If you're Buffalo, if you bid on that, you have to clear out the Sabres for more than a week. So bid on it. Like, you make it work. Like the women's tournament, you have Canisius, you have Niagara. They should be bidding on it. Like, you're the Pagulas, you should want in on this. So the idea, I'm just afraid that tonight they're going to get to the storyline where it's going to be, hey, on the heels of Portland, where they can't even know how to measure, and it was actually the manufacturer who did that, but nobody caught it, to, hey, why are we in this arena here in Albany? I just kind of see that maybe popping up tonight. Hopefully we get a good game between LSU and Iowa. Certainly I'll be paying attention tonight, out and about. The other storyline today, too, and this is incredibly sad, and we had it in the update. Vontae Davis died. And I guess the story is whoever tends to their house found him. Police are saying at this time they don't suspect foul play, and they have their investigation going. Only 35. Way too young. And for Vontae Davis, I could read you the story. Pick any story. Like, Vontae Davis' story was, hey, when he was in Miami, he was one of the best corners in the game. Hey, when he was with the Colts, he helped that team. But he did something that was unique, and unique means one of a kind, that he actually retired mid-game. And that is his legacy. And I feel bad that I have to bring that up today. I'm not bringing it up in a punchline sort of way here on April Fool's Day. No, it's the fact that when the fire goes out in an NFL player, sometimes it can happen. Like, I don't have this anymore. Maybe it's in your profession, whatever it is. I don't have this anymore. I can't do this anymore. But the fact that you couldn't wait 30 minutes, if he had just gone the next morning to Sean McDermott's office and said, Coach, I'm sorry. I don't have this anymore. You know what? His teammates would have respected him. Bills Mafia would have been kind of like, oh, that's a bummer. They would have respected him and say, I can't do this anymore. But the fact that you left the guys you're with hanging, And I remember Kyle Williams just being so pissed off after that game. Other Bills players just like, what was that? And nobody knew. You're in the stands, or you were there. That was the Charger game. Josh Allen's first game, by the way, at home. Like, they opened that road that year at Baltimore, and they got destroyed. And then probably came from high above. You're starting Josh Allen the next week, and the Bills lost to the Chargers. We really weren't that good a team. Phillip Rivers was still on the team. And we had no idea. Nobody did. And I just started to get around like, wait, did that really happen? Did he really kind of quit? So and what also kind of made it strange was that, wow, 1 month earlier at Fisher, we had Vontae Davis as a guest. And when the players come on with us for training camp, it's you get them in a different setting, and sometimes they open up. And I'm not going to play the audio today because I think that would be inappropriate. But Vontae Davis talking about how he wants to travel, how he and his wife are happy. He sounded like a guy who, at the time, my takeaway was, okay, this will be his last year in the league, and he's going to help this team out. And he's getting, I think at the time, $5 million. That was his base salary. Well, he didn't see like the majority of that because you only get paid per game. And the way the story went was Vontae Davis goes in the locker room, calls up his wife, says, hon, I want to retire right now. And she says, that's fine. Come on home. And he took off his gear and walked out. And again, nobody knew. You could have thought just like an injury. I don't remember getting any Vontae Davis update in the press box. It was a real low point for the Buffalo Bills where they were a punchline because of this. And you have to dial it back to like the Doug Whaley, Russ Brandon era of just bad PR gaffes. And you have to dial it back to, you lost, literally the score the week before was 47-3. And you had a quarterback that many people thought was going to be a complete bust. And to Josh Allen's credit and to the coaching staff's credit, they have proved that it was certainly the right choice, shutting people like me up on that. So that was a low point. But then what happens the next week? Dan DeLorean, you're a Viking fan. What happens the next week?
Gino, I can't remember what.
Okay, they destroy the Vikings.
No, I don't think that happened, Gino. I don't remember anything about Josh Allen jumping over Anthony Barr or anything like that. No, I don't remember that. No, it didn't happen.
No, and again, I don't know what his situation was with his wife or his family, but you just feel for everybody because you see that story today, and it's like, wow, 35, just way too young for sure. The other story too is this, and again, I'm going to put the disclaimer here is this is a major story in sports with the portal. With the portal in college basketball, I thought it was completely inappropriate. Okay, that the Monday where we're all kind of consuming the brackets and kind of celebrating the teams that got in, or maybe debating on teams like St. John's that were left out, things we normally do on the Monday before the NCAA tournament. Little did I know, like, wait a second, the portal opened today? Wait a second, like the Orange are losing who? Like what? And all these teams, Bonaventure included, like you had all these teams, like this does not feel right. You know, we were joined earlier today by Tim Schneider, and it's like, yeah, you're kind of realizing that as a mid-major, life sucks right now because the portal is going to gut you. It's going to go one direction more out than it is coming in. And that was never more close to home than what happened yesterday. I'm like having Easter brunch with my folks, my brother and sister-in-law, and like my kids, my wife. We're like, yeah, this is kind of good. And I have my phone on me, just in case something happens, and all of a sudden I get a text. Scarfoni and Wilkie are leaving. Like, what? To kind of put this into context, the Tigers, the RT Tigers, 8 days before, highest points in the history of that arena. You win the championship. You get into the NCAA tournament. You party. You earned it. You won. And now you get to go and take on the big dragon here, Boston University. And you know what? You were in that game. You did not embarrass yourself. You represented RIT. You represented Rochester. You represented your coaching staff. You represented yourselves. You represented everybody well. No one came out of that saying, "Oh, we didn't belong." Now you're thinking, boy, if we could get a better seed next year and we could face those guys maybe down the road or a team, but then Boston University is like one of those teams that like, wow, they could win the whole thing. It's either they could beat them or BC, by the way. By the way, they both made the Frozen Four. Shocker. And then on March 31st, the portal opens up. March 31st, 8 days after. And in goes the top playmaker for RIT. And in goes the goaltender that had a 92 save percentage, 92.5. Who is advising these players? Who? Like, what is to be gained? Kevin Oklubja has a good article, which I would point to. And in it, he talked to Steve Bartlett. Steve Bartlett can't say he's the agent for, because he's not, but he's advising Carter Wilkie. That's the advice, like go to a bigger program. Because Carter Wilkie, as an NHL prospect, it's a reason why no team came calling for him as an NHL prospect. So you have 1 year left, maybe 2 if you wanted to stay year 5. I'm sorry, get your degree and lead your team and lead your brothers here. But it's the portal has turned it into not team, but me. If the pros, if he did sign somewhere, you would have been like, good for you. That's your next step. But to me, that's a lateral move, and you're not welcome back here. Sorry, you left. And then the same thing with Scarfoni. Like, you could go to, like, the Big Ten school there and split time or somewhere else, but tell me this time next year if you're in a better spot. I do the play-by-play for RIT, so I might, I'm very mindful that I have some, I have my biases here. And that I just think that with the portal opening up only 8 days after you win a championship, 4 days after your season ended, how the F does the NCAA say that's good for kids or any family? You're going to make that major decision. You need to give it more time. Push the portal dates back. Because that is in part by emotion, and you let things come down. To read in Kevin's article that the whole RIT staff didn't even know Tommy was ending the portal. Okay, well, again, I don't know if that would have changed anything, but to me that is bad business, that you need to push those dates back. There's no reason you can't do that. Again, you win a championship, you're hoisting the cup, and then 8 days later, okay, that was fun, guys, I'll see you. Hey, these are the rules. It's a free country, but can't have it both ways. And I will tip the cap to Wayne Wilson for just kind of saying, a lot of coaches will do this. Hey, you enter the portal, you're not coming back. Like, that's the rule. Like, I've gotten that question a lot. Like, can't they come back? Yeah, they could. But think about it. Like, if you set that precedent, then every player would be like wanting to kind of get re-recruited and everything else. Now, I can hear a couple of objections. Well, what about the money? Like, what if like one of these two players wanted the money? It's college hockey. I'm not completely up on the NIL. Maybe there's a collective at North Dakota. Maybe there's a collective at Notre Dame. I don't know. But it's not going to be that great. We're not talking about, it happened like Syracuse, Jesse Edwards, the player that took a lot of money, apparently, to go to West Virginia. How'd that work out for him? We got the money, and your career's over. Thanks for coming. The bottom line is this. Things we can learn from here. One, it's going to be tough for mid-majors. And RIT is in a mid-major conference. Atlantic hockey, saying it mid-major, that would be kind of nice there. I mean, they are the bottom of all colleges, conferences, and when it comes to Division I hockey. And the pathway before is like win the conference and then see where you win. Well, win the conference, but then if it's going to be like this every year, Tom wrote into me. Has there been any discussions about the Tigers changing conferences? Tom, to my knowledge, no. And it's not that easy. Trust me. It really isn't. Like, I always thought the conference that the Tigers, this is me talking with no knowledge. But if you're RIT, the ECAC, where there isn't an Ivy League for hockey because not all Ivy League schools field hockey teams, but the idea that you could be in with a Yale and a Cornell and a Brown, and that's Harvard. Yeah, you would sign that up in the New York Minute. And the academics at RIT would warrant that you could go in, but it's not that easy to kind of get in. What about the Hockey East? Hockey East is not going to come to Rochester. We don't have a sports network here, okay? Hockey East is like the SEC of college hockey. So, yes, I went a little long here on RIT hockey. I'm very mindful of that, but I'm also very passionate about Rochester sports. And I didn't see the story of RIT hockey kind of taking that turn over the weekend, but it did. And now it's up to Wayne Wilson and the staff to kind of figure things out here. Danger tweeting the picture of like Danger. Go back on vacation.
He tagged us both on that one.
Yeah, no, that's I saw that. If you want to see that, you can go online. I had a tweet. Where was it? It was from Jack telling me.
Not a real name.
I need to kind of go into that, how that running joke started. It was a rant about Jack Eichel, who was coming back to play Buffalo. That was the game where he lost, and his first time back. And my closing argument was, Jack, it's not even a real name. It was about Jack Eichel. Little did I know that, like, one of our listeners, good friend of the show, he also happens to have the first name of Jack. Talk about my Pirates, he says. All right, the Pirates are 4-0, and then let's take a look here. What are they doing? They're up 2-1 on the Nats. But it's Washington. Do they really count? I'm not so sure. They have ended that rain delay with the White Sox as the Braves leading 9-0. We were joined earlier today. Thank you, Dan. We were joined earlier today by Dan Fates, 13 Wham. And again, it's been kind of a rough go for Mets. Again, we're not only a weekend into the season, but we had some fun with that. If you missed that, you can download the free Odyssey app. And that was back in the 4 o'clock hour. Let's get to some shots here in the sports bar, storylines from around. And notice I haven't talked about, Dan, that hockey team.
The S word.
Yeah, the hockey team plays down the road. We got some NBA tonight, too. And how's it looking for opening day tomorrow for the Red Wings? Look, if it's like today, we'd all sign up for that, but I'm not so sure. We've got those stories and more coming up. Shots on the way. My name is Gene Battaglia. Mike Danger is off this week. Dan DeLorean, our producer here on The Fan Rochester.
From the field to the court to the rink, the sports leader is there. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Time for your calls coming up in last call at 866-4FAN, 866-4326, as shots in the sports bar, some of the stories we haven't gotten to here, as the lesson we learned from this NCAA men's tournament, pay attention to the team that comes in hot, and really no team came in hotter than NC State. The Wolfpack, they're going to take on Purdue, and that's going to be a tough chore here. The Boilermakers finally getting over that hump. And as for NC State, in case you haven't heard, they're in the Final Four for the first time since Jim Valvano's team won it in 1983. The other semifinal, it's going to be Alabama against UConn, the two former high school coaches. Nate Oates, of course, lay over there in UB. Now the head coach at Alabama. Hurley, the head coach at UConn. Should be some good basketball coming up Saturday and next Monday. And for NC State, they won 5 games in a row in the ACC tournament. Think about that. Like, if Syracuse had stepped up that night, they don't get in. Who knows if they even go to the NIT, but sometimes all you need is that opportunity. NC State got that opportunity. They beat Duke twice in this winning streak here. 4 games to get to the Final Four, and now you need 2 more to become national champions. And from that 83 team, Dan, that is way, way before your time. But here's a quick history lesson. There was a team from Houston, Phi Slamma Jamma, and they were fun. Clyde Drexler, Hakeem Olajuwon. I remember pulling for this team, and it was actually this underdog. And I don't know what the line was at that time, but gosh, NC State, big underdog before the 3-point line. They pulled off the upset. And Valvano and everybody credited him with that coaching job. So good on them, certainly. Duke going out there. So first time Duke getting to the Elite Eight without Coach K since 1978. So I guess that's a step in the right direction. We've been talking about this a lot tonight in Albany, Iowa, and LSU. 7 o'clock. And I like this. Don't put this on at 8 or 9. Like, you have a younger audience. Like, put it on at 7 o'clock. Let everybody watch this. On ESPN tonight, Caitlin Clark's team is favored by just 1.5. Out west on what is now a correct court. They have made the adjustment. If you missed that court in yesterday out in Portland, they had it 9 inches short. They had it 9 inches short.
Okay.
9 inches short.
Times.
See, I don't need the okay. Just thank you.
9 times.
That stands a little protest. Final Four for the the winner of this game, UConn USC, will go to the Final Four. Funny thing is that the best team in women's college basketball, we don't even talk about, like, somehow a team that's 36-0 is flying under the radar, but South Carolina is really, really good. And NC State is already in the Final Four as well. So South Carolina, NC State, we'll figure out the other 2 teams tonight. The national champion in women's basketball, the trend will continue. It's only been a 1, a 2, or a 3 seed, never anything else. Amherst. We haven't talked about the Amherst standing.
Got a big overtime win.
Listen.
It's like 21 seconds into overtime that they won the other day?
Yeah. It's what are we talking about here? 7-2-1 in the last 10. Rested Amherst going to Cleveland. Just the one game this weekend. They get the 2 points. Down by 2 in the third. Amherst score 3 straight. And as you mentioned, Jeremy Davies, 21 seconds into overtime. The Amherst sitting right in third place. 4 points up on the Marlies. Marlies still with a game in hand. 2 points now behind Cleveland for second place, which would be big because you would get Cleveland and you would get the home ice if you climb up to second place. And I think that would be actually the preferred route.
I don't think it matters. I think the way Seth Appert has his team playing right now, he can play at home, on the road. I don't think he really cares where his team's going to play. They're you said, what are they, 6-1-1 their last 8 or something? They're on fire right now.
I'll listen to that with this exception.
I don't think he cares.
No. He won't ever admit this. We'll talk to him tomorrow at 4:25. Being that 4-5 game, you don't want. You don't win. Yeah, you don't. It's hockey.
I just think in terms of home ice advantage, I don't think he really cares if they start in Cleveland, they start in Rochester. They can start on the moon. He's going to have his team ready to go.
Now, I'm going to look at my phone for the latest up-to-date forecast here for tomorrow, Dan. Because tomorrow is opening day. Maybe.
Go Wings.
Yeah, go Wings.
Not looking good?
Yeah, let's see. 4 o'clock, 60% chance of rain, 45 degrees.
Ooh.
All right, so tomorrow, if you bought tickets, I think that 50-degree guarantee might actually kind of work out in your favor tomorrow. And if they do get the game in, you're just going to have to prepare accordingly. Lehigh Valley is the opponent. They are here for the week, and then the Red Wings will have their alternate identity, the Moon Rocks. I think they're going to call themselves
for the
Eclipse.
okay.
Yeah, so that's going to kind of take place. Joel Embiid. Yeah, he's going to be back tomorrow night, sounds like. The Sixers taking on Oklahoma City. And this is one of those days where I wish Danger was in here because we would be debating this. He had to take, like, hey, it's not right. Look, send him out the rest of the year, just come back next year. I'm like, dude, he's going to come back and be in time for the postseason. And in the Eastern Conference, who the heck knows? Now, the problem for Philadelphia is this. Right now, they're in the play-in kind of portion of it. They are in no danger of slipping out of the postseason, if you consider a playing game postseason. They are 11 games up on Brooklyn. Wow, that is something. Brooklyn not yet eliminated. So there is a gap there. Philadelphia in 8th place, but they're only 2 games behind Indiana for 6th place. The Knicks are kind of falling apart here a little bit. They've dropped the last 2. Philadelphia tomorrow night against Oklahoma City, which would be a test. If you haven't been paying attention, Oklahoma City is actually the best team in the West.
Did not know that.
Yes. Oh, see, Dan?
The more you know.
52-22 being their record there. So they and Denver are the first 2 teams to clinch out west. So, again, Joel Embiid coming to the lineup tomorrow night. Tonight is if you didn't have enough on your plate with the women's basketball, you could check out the Celtics tonight. They are in action. And who are they playing? As I kind of lost my place on the page here. They're playing at Charlotte. So last Monday night, that was a really bad loss they had down in Atlanta. Major League Baseball tonight, there's plenty of action tonight. You got the Orioles, who won their opening series against the Angels. They're home against Kansas City. You've got the Mets, who are 0-3 on the season, taking on the 3-0 Detroit Tigers. That's at Citi Field, where I'm sure tickets as low as $7 tonight for this game, Dan. If you can make it down there.
I don't know I'm going to make it in time.
I don't think so either. Red Sox playing out in Oakland, where how many Red Sox fans versus A's fans will actually be there tonight? That's always a sad state of affairs. And the Yankees. Hey, Yankee fans, you've earned it. You can walk around happy sweeping Houston. There's some teams that matters more, and that will mean something for a generation. The fact that team that kind of took something that you might have had in 2017, the ALCS. Mm-hmm. The Yankees sweeping the 4 games. I didn't see that coming. So, and as you pointed out, Dan, earlier in the show, all 4 of those games, the Yankees rallying.
Behind, yeah.
So out in Arizona tonight, that if you can stay up for that, that's a 9:40 Eastern first pitch. So you can go from Caitlin Clark to, depending on where you pick up your baseball, perhaps the Yankees, perhaps the Sox. I mean, there's some good action here tonight on a Monday here when we're not in football season. Finally, how can the Buffalo Sabres not be eliminated yet?
They're not eliminated.
No, somehow they still have a 1.1% chance to make the postseason.
Still a chance.
But no worries, Dan. Things are going to, there are things to celebrate along the way, like Jeff Skinner's 1,000th NHL game, which got the attention of lead actress Lily Collins. She plays the lead of Emily in Paris.
Bonjour, Jeff. I heard that you were a big fan, so I wanted to send you a congratulatory video for your 1,000th game in the NHL. I've never played one game, let alone 1,000, so props to you for that. Saying hi from the backdrops of somewhere that I think you know very well. Congratulations, good luck, and au revoir.
All right, Dan, have you watched Emily in Paris?
I have not.
That is not shocking. I have seen a couple episodes. I couldn't tell you if they're in season, out of season, but what I can tell you is, and this makes me feel old, Lily Collins is the daughter of Phil Collins. Hit the more you know button.
Oh, Gino, why do you do this to me, Gino?
Maybe the Sabres social feeds can just show cameos of Lily Collins and pictures of cute dogs and cats and whatever else to make us kind of smile here the rest of the way. Buffalo at home tomorrow night against Washington. And again, that is going to be Jeff Skinner's 1,000th NHL game. And the fun fact is, of those 1,001 NHL games, 0 have come in the postseason.
Oh, that's
not something.
Now, could she send me a video for all the show opens that I've made?
No, you don't have the pull.
Okay.
We don't have the pull. Not going to happen there. So that's shots in the sports bar. We got time for your calls. Last call coming up, so let's take a quick break. We will reset here. Again, our phone number 866-4326, 866-4FAN. It's the sports bar here on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Our fan base, again, is obnoxious as on social, so everyone hates us. And it was a chance to celebrate with them because our fan base and our organization right now, it's an us against the world of college basketball, and I wanted to celebrate with them a little bit.
That's Dan Hurley, the head coach there at UConn, and the one thing I will admit I was wrong on, just because it's so hard to repeat here, but they are not just beating teams, they are beating teams, like right into the ground. UConn has been everything as advertised, and it's going to be a fun men's Final Four. But what's also fun about this, Dan, is that that's coming up next weekend, and we can talk about that, and we can look forward to that. I know I'm going to be getting together with some friends on Saturday, and we're going to kind of watch. But we got the women tonight. We got this other story I haven't touched on with the women. 108 wins in 5 years. Dan, do the math there. That's pretty good, right? That's
I'm a comp major. We didn't do math.
Yeah, so that's 21 or 20, 21, 22 wins a season in the SEC. Kelly Harper at Tennessee got fired today. It's Tennessee.
Oh.
It's Tennessee. That's the issue. She won 20 or more games 4 of those 5 years, but never got past the Sweet 16. And if you're Tennessee, the program that basically launched women's basketball, and you're watching 36-0 South Carolina, and your rival Gino up at UConn, and now you've got Iowa and LSU and Kim Mulkey, and not to mention USC and all these other programs, and you can't get out of the Sweet 16. Doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. Doesn't matter if you pile up the wins. It's just, that's a bar that is so high. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you have to follow a legend like Pat Summitt, who passed away years ago, that's tough. And for Kelly Harper, again, fired today, 108 wins in 5 years, and that's not going to cut it. It's a conversation whenever we take calls on Sean McDermott. Like, the Bills have piled up wins. Over the last 5 years, the Buffalo Bills have the most wins in the league. Regular season. And yet, it's it's the fact that you can't get over that hump, and we take those calls. Well, when you're dealing with a collective and an NIL, and I would argue also that Tennessee is actually losing ground. Tennessee women's basketball, the fact that we don't even talk about them the way we used to. Yeah, I can understand, but who are they going to bring in? You're not bringing in a Kim Mulkey. You're not bringing in the coach from Iowa. You're certainly not bringing in Gino Auriemma. So careful what you wish for in that regard. Story from the NFL we've yet to touch on today, that wide receiver Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs, his representation say he is cooperating with authorities after a car registered or leased in his name was involved in a multi-vehicle crash Saturday night. Now, this is a story that I woke up yesterday morning, look at my phone, like, what? What's going on? Like, police in Dallas were searching for Rashee Rice, and apparently this car and another car, sports cars, were drag racing. And one car being a Corvette, the other car being a Lamborghini. I don't know which of these was Rashee Rice. Is the Lamborghini or Corvette? Are you a Corvette guy? A Lamborghini?
I love Corvettes.
I think so.
Corvette guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind driving a Lamborghini too.
Yeah.
There used to be a business in town, Dan, that if you wanted to do this, I don't even know if it still exists. Like, you could rent out for like a day, like a sports car like this. And great.
What price are we talking about?
Yeah, like, honestly, okay, that seems like a model though in Rochester. It's not that we don't have the money. How many days would you actually get out to drive around the Corvette or the Lamborghini? That's the problem. Like, here, not too many. Like, we're going to have like a crappy weather week. Yeah. It's like, it's April. It's like, anyways, I digress. Back to Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
Not facing any charges yet, but something happened where this crash was involved, and thankfully there's no fatalities or anything like that. But it's just a reminder that this is the offseason. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think it's pretty clear what they want to do. I read Chiefs Twitter as well. I still call it Twitter, whatever. They want a wide receiver. They're drafting behind Buffalo, and that would be the argument to anybody that would say, get the receiver in round 1. What I'm telling people is, hey, are you really confident with Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp as your safeties? Hey, I know the Bills have kind of whiffed it in the defensive line, but you're going to need more pass rushers. You need this. You need depth on defense. The counter argument to that would be, yeah, but do you want to get the receiver you like, or do you want to get your second best from Kansas City? Because the last time the teams had the same need, it was the corner. And
McDuffie.
Yeah. And the Bills actually traded up for Kyrie Allen, too, which, yeah. Tomorrow on the show, we'll be talking to Matt Perino, who is not at Epcot tomorrow. So Matt Perino, we'll revisit that. That was pretty funny when he's doing the test track. Matt Perino will be joining us. Also, the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Seth Appert. The Emerks have one home game this week. It's going to be Wednesday, and that will be against Cleveland. So the back end, you still call it a home and home, even though there's a little bit spread out. Then the Emerks are actually going to go to Providence and Bridgeport. They haven't played since opening night. Well, it's a little bit different. We'll talk to the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Seth Appert. That is coming up tomorrow in the Sports Bar. Tonight, enjoy the basketball, enjoy baseball, and we appreciate you listening here on the Sports Bar. For my buddy Dan Drummy. The perfect hair there, buddy.
Thank you, Gino. I appreciate it.
Have a good night, everyone.